Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Jen's Books, and I hope you're having a fantastic week. In the north of England, it's properly autumn now. Cold, wet, leaves turning brown and falling off the trees. Everything that you'd expect. And I hope it's a bit nicer wherever it is that you're based. First of all, before I start the video, I wanted to thank everybody for all the fantastic comments and recommendations that have been coming through in the comments on YouTube. It's been really wonderful to hear about the books that you enjoy reading and your suggestions. As a result of that, I promise you, at the moment I'm reading a haunted house gothic novel, but the next book I'm going to read is Wuthering Heights. I'm going to reread Wuthering Heights and tell you what my thoughts are and whether they've changed from the 20 odd years ago since I last read it. And it's really interesting. There seems to be a real appetite for classic 19th century novels among you all. So I'm going to try and read at least one a month of a classic novel and share my thoughts with you as we go along. So this video is actually a haul video. I'm sorry, I promised at the end of the last one there'd be another haul video, but this is kind of like the haul video to end all haul videos. I've been very naughty. I've got a mixture of library books. I've got secondhand books. I always try and get secondhand where I can, but also a few new releases that I could not resist. Don't tell my husband. So starting off, we've got a couple of library books. The first one is Jane Fallon's Just Got Real, and picked this up. I was drawn to it by that really sort of bright and vibrant cover, and it just sounds like a really sort of fun light read. It says you can fake anything online. When happily divorced Joni is reluctantly talked into joining a dating app, she is surprised to quickly hit it off with Ant. Phone calls and texts soon evolve into a plan to meet up, which is a problem as Joni's profile photo is of someone else. Joni daren't confess her lie, yet unable to stop thinking about what might have been, she hatches a plan to meet Ant in real life without revealing who she actually is. Once they're an item, however, it's soon clear that the only thing Ant was honest about was his profile photo. He's still online dating and intimately texting other people, so her thoughts turn to revenge. So that sounded like quite a nice light read, and I'm quite looking forward to picking that up, and I'll tell you what my thoughts are. Quite nice after all the sort of autumnal gothic stuff that I've been reading recently. The next book that I have from the library is The Marsh House by Zoe Somerville. This is one that I don't know a huge amount about either, but again, it sort of scratched that gothic itch that I do like to focus on. So it says, desperate for happy Christmas after a disastrous year, Mallory rents a remote house on the Norfolk coast for herself and her daughter, Franny. Yet when a furious blizzard traps the pair indoors, the strained silence between them feels louder than ever. Escaping to the attic, Mallory finds the discarded diaries of Rosemary, who lived at the Marsh House through the 30s. And as she reads, she finds herself drawn into Rosemary's lonely existence until past and present begin to blur entirely. So that really drew me in. That sounds really, really interesting. So those are my library books. Next, I'm going to tell you about some purchases that I made. First of all, couldn't resist this one again, Remarkably Bright Creatures. And this one I was drawn to because of that fabulous octopus on the front of it in pink. This is by Shelby Van Pelt. The blurb says, after Tova Sullivan's husband died, she began working the night cleaner shift at the Sowell Bay Aquarium. Keeping busy has helped her cope for over 30 years since her son Eric mysteriously vanished on a boat. One night she meets Marcellus, a giant Pacific octopus living at the aquarium who sees everything, but wouldn't dream of lifting one of his 8 arms for his human captors until he forms a remarkable friendship with Tova. Ever the detective, Marcellus deduces what happened the night Tova's son disappeared, and now he must use every trick of his old body can muster to unearth the truth for her before it's too late. And this on the back, it says it's a BBC Two radio book club pick. I don't know anything more about it than that, but it really drew me in. I think particularly after reading Claire Fuller's The Memory of Animals, I've got octopuses on the brain. So that was why I picked this one up. I think I've almost at the point now where I can do a 6 from the shelf edition of just books with octopuses in. That might be one that comes later in the year. Next we have a recommendation. I think this came from Jen Campbell actually. The DeLorean by Missouri Williams, and I found the painting again, I can usually tell. I think marketing of books is so incredibly clever that you can often tell straight away if you're drawn to a book, it's something you're likely going to enjoy. And this one has the sticker from the second-hand place right over the information, which doesn't really help. So I can't really tell you much about that. I know it's a gothic fiction book. Let's see if we can peel off the sticker and find out a bit more. Let's have a look, just as proof they are secondhand. It's something to do with a environmental cataclysm that has wiped out the rest of humankind. I can see the word incest. Fear and force. Together the family scavenges supplies and attempts to cultivate the poisoned earth. So that was probably what drew me to it. It sounds like it's an apocalyptic novel, or a post-apocalyptic novel as a family who are left are trying to find their way. It says it's gothic and strange, moving and disquieting. I think, you know, I really enjoy strange little books, and I think this fits into the strange little book category. So I'll tell you a bit more about it when I've read it. I don't like to know huge amounts about books, but usually I can at least read you the back. But as you can see, they've well and truly stuck stickers on the back of that one. Next is another second-hand book, and I couldn't really be any more excited than I am about this book. And it's a translated text. It's an Argentinian book by Sebastian Martinez Daniel, translated by Jennifer Croft, and it's called Two Sherpas. So those who've been following the channel for a while will know I love books about mountains. I love books about mountaineering. I love biographies of mountaineering experiences, all of that good stuff. And this is a novel that is about two Sherpas. It says an Englishman has fallen from a ridge in Nepal. His guides kneel at the edge, exchanging the odd word, waiting for him to move. They must make a decision to descend. In those minutes, Two Sherpas expands dizzyingly to encompass Mount Everest place in the imagination of imperialists, Nazis and others. Ambition, exploration and exploitation. A mysterious encounter in a beach resort in a distant land. A performance of Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, and so much more. Perched on that rocky ledge, each breath is crystalline, and the whole world is visible from here. So this just sounds really, really intriguing, and I can't wait to read it. I say Mount Everest, Sherpas, it's about climbing, it's about adventure, but it's also about humankind as a whole. So I'm really, really looking forward to reading that. That one actually secondhand, but arrived today. Next we have another sort of more of a classic, George Orwell's The Road to Wigan Pier. Those of you who watched one of my previous videos know that I'm doing some research about the north of England, and I think that this novel had quite a big impact on the way that the north of England was viewed more widely. It says, revolutionary for its time, The Road to Wigan Pier documents George Orwell's stint in the bleak industrial heartlands of Yorkshire and Lancashire in the 1930s. Orwell graphically describes the hardships of ordinary working class people living in cramped slum housing, working in dangerous mines and growing hungry through malnutrition and social injustice. It is a powerful and humane study that looks at socialism as a solution, something many readers at the time were uncomfortable discussing. The Road to Wigan Pier was the first book to bring Orwell substantial critical acclaim and the inspiration for many of the themes in his later works. So really looking forward to reading this. Don't know any more about it than that. As I say, it's nearly 100 years old now. You're probably more familiar with Animal Farm in 1984, but it sounds like this is kind of going to feed into those novels a bit. So I'm looking forward to reading that one. Right, now we have some some new purchases that I couldn't wait to read. The first one is Mrs. S by Kate Patrick. And this is one I picked up on my travels. I'd been sort of umming and ahhing about it for a while, but I came across it in a bookshop in Leeds, and it felt like a sign that I had to buy it. So the blurb on this one is, in an elite English boarding school where the girls kiss the marble statue of the famous dead author who used to walk the halls, a young Australian woman arrives to take up the antiquated role of matron. Within this landscape of immense privilege, in which the girls can sense the slightest weakness in those around them, she finds herself unsure of her role, her accent and her body. That is until she meets Mrs. S, the headmaster's wife, a woman who is her polar opposite, assured, sophisticated, a paragon of femininity. Over the course of a long, restless heat wave, the matron finds herself irresistibly drawn ever closer into Mrs. S's world, and their unspoken desire blooms into an illicit affair of electric intensity. But as the summer begins to fade, both women know that a choice must be made. So I've not read anything by Kay Patrick before. I don't know anything more about it, but it sounded just like a really fantastic location and setting. It sounds like there's going to be loads of tension, and I'm looking forward to cracking that one open. Next, another book I got on my travels. I love these airport editions of books. They're slightly bigger and slightly bigger font. I really, really like those. So if I'm travelling somewhere, I'll often pick them up on the way. But this is Rouge by Mona Awad, who you might know, who published Bunny, which has been well spoken about, which is a dark academia, slightly magic realism book. This book is a slightly different take, and you'll know as I read it why I picked this one up. From the critically acclaimed author of Bunny comes a horror-tinged gothic fairy tale about a lonely dress shop clerk whose mother's unexpected death sends her down a treacherous path in pursuit of youth and beauty. Can she escape her mother's fate and find a connection that is more than skin deep? It's Snow White meets Eyes Wide Shut in a surreal descent into the dark side of beauty, envy, grief, and the complicated love between mothers and daughters. With black humour and seductive horror, Rouge explores the cult-like nature of the beauty industry, as well as the danger of internalising its pitiless gaze. There was something about this that reminded me of Camilla Gradova's collection of short stories, The Dollhouse, which I read recently. I don't know whether it's the themes of beauty or the fact it's being described as gothic, but I immediately quite fancied reading this one, so I've picked this one up and I'll let you know. I wasn't a huge massive fan of Bunny. It's one that I got part way through and didn't finish, so I feel like I need to pick that up and give it another go because so many people have loved it. If you've read Bunny and you think I should give it another go, let me know. But I am quite looking forward to reading this. Anything that says gothic fairy tale is, it's already, taken my money. The other one I picked up from the airport was The Stargazers by Harriet Evans, and I think this is more of a kind of family saga type of a novel. It says it's the 1970s and Sarah spent a lifetime trying to bury memories of her childhood, her constant fear, the horror of her school days, and Fane, the vast crumbling house. I love a vast crumbling house. That was her sole obsession of her mother, Iris, a woman as beautiful as she was cruel. Sarah's solace has been her cello and the music that allowed her to dream, transporting her from the bleakness of those early years to her new life with her husband Daniel in their safe, if slightly chaotic, Hampstead home, with a concert career that has brought her fame and restored a sense of self. The past, however, has a habit of creeping into the present, and as long as Sarah tries to escape, it seems the pull of her mother, Fane Hall, and the secrets hidden there cannot be suppressed, threatening to unravel the fragile happiness she enjoys now. So again, ghosts of the past, crumbling mansions in the countryside, all sorts of things that I do like to read. So that's The Stargazers by Harriet Evans. Again, don't know much about her or the book, but looking forward to reading that. I'm thinking it's probably going to be quite a bit of a page turner. Next, I bought The Land of Lost Things by John Connolly. And the reason I bought this, and it's a signed edition as well, which was the other reason I bought it, this was when I was in Belfast actually, is I absolutely adore the book before this, the Book of Lost Thing, the Book of Lost Things, and this is a sequel. The Book of Lost Things came out quite a long time ago now, at least 10 years, maybe a little bit longer, and I absolutely loved that book. And so when I saw the sequel was coming out, I already knew that I was going to buy it. And as I say, I saw the signed edition and it felt like a sign that I had to buy it. It says, Phoebe, an 8-year-old girl, lies comatose following a car accident. She is a body without spirit, a stolen child. Ceres, her mother, can only sit by her bedside and read aloud to her the fairy tales she loves in the hope that they will summon her back to this world. But it's hard to keep faith, so very hard. Now, an old house on the hospital grounds, a property connected to a book written by a vanished author, is calling to Ceres. Something wants her to enter and to journey to a land coloured by the memories of her childhood and the folklore beloved of her father, to a land of witches, dryads, giants and mandrakes, to a land where old enemies are watching and waiting. So the first book followed the story of a boy who gets lost in the Book of Lost Things. I feel like I need to reread it. I absolutely loved it. It was like one of my absolute favourite books for quite a long time, but I'm going to reread that probably before I reread this one, although it sounds as though they're quite different. It's also beautiful, a little like gold all over it. So really looking forward to reading that. I was very excited as soon as I heard that that was coming out. If you've not read the Book of Lost Things, definitely recommend it if you like sort of gothic fairy tale type stuff. It kind of has a feel at parts that it might be YA, but it really isn't. It's really quite dark and brutal. So really looking forward to reading that one. The next one is one that I will admit I bought on the strength of the cover, the name, and the quotation by Maggie O'Farrell on the front, and that's The Northwoods by Daniel Mason. I don't know what it is that drew me in about this one, and it's got the same sort of image on the back. I think it was literally just the cover, and it says 4 centuries, a single house deep in the woods of New England. Again, you know, crumbling houses in the countryside. There's a running theme here in in this hall. A young Puritan couple on the run, an English soldier with a fantastic vision, inseparable twin sisters, a lovelorn painter and a lusty beetle, a desperate mother and a haunted son, a ruthless conman and a stalking panther, buried secrets, madness, dreams and hopes, all are connected. The dark, raucous, beautiful past is very much alive. So it's looking at different generations of people, I think, living in the same property. That's as much as I know. But I just the cover. It's just the cover. I just could not resist. Yeah, I did pick this one up pretty quickly. Again, I haven't read any of his other work. It'd be really nice to know if anybody's read any of his previous stuff, and whether this is one that's taken your fancy as well. The next one is one of the ones that made it to the Booker shortlist. I'll probably talk about the Booker shortlist a little bit more in my next video, because I've just finished reading The Prophet Song, which I really loved. Spoilers. So I'll talk a little bit about the books that I've read so far that are on the shortlist. But one of the ones that was shortlisted that I didn't have, but I have picked up since, is Paul Harding's This Other Eden. So again, this is one that I've heard a bit about, and it sounds like it's topics that are going to really enjoy me. It's not a massive chunky book either, so it should hopefully be quite a quickish read. But it says the profoundly moving story of an island refuge and a community of outcasts living on borrowed time, by the Pulitzer Prize winning author of Tinkers, which I've not read. Set at the beginning of the 20th century and inspired by historical events, The Other Eden tells of Apple Island, an enclave off the coast of the United States, where waves of castaways in flight from society and in its judgment have landed and built a home. Benjamin Honey, American Bantu Igbo, born enslaved, freed or fled at 15, aspiring orchardist, arrived on the island with his Irish wife, Patience, and discovered they could make a life together here. More than a century later, the Honey's descendants remain with an eccentric, diverse band of neighbours. Then comes the intrusion of civilization. Officers determined to cleanse the land, and a missionary schoolteacher selects one light-skinned boy to save. The rest will succumb to the authorities, institutions, or cast themselves on the waters in a new Noah's Ark. That sounds fascinating. I'm really looking forward to reading that, and I'm glad I made the choice to pick this one up. I don't have all the books on the shortlist, but I have 3 of them I like to have a hand in, just in case. You know, I like to follow the Booker, because it's been a really good prize in terms of introducing me to new writers and books and histories that I've never heard of. So really looking forward to reading that one as well. Okay, we're nearly there, don't worry, stay with me. Next we have The Glutton by A.K. Blakemore. And again, this is about a historical individual that I've read about before. And the cover again intrigued me straight away. A.K. Blakemore also read The Manningtree Witches, which I don't think I've read. So if I enjoy this, I might go back and read that, because I know a lot of people really love that book. But this, I don't know, there's something of perfume about it, if you've read Perfume. Sister Perpetua is not to move. She is not to fall asleep. She is to sit, keeping guard over the patient's room. She has heard the stories of his hunger, which defy belief. He has eaten all manner of creatures and objects, a child even, if the rumours are to be believed. But it is hard to believe that this slender, frail man is the one they once called the Great Terrar, the Glutton of Leon. It's actually, I'm pretty sure that this is based on a real life individual, but it's based at the end of the 18th century. Unrest gripping the heart of France, and life in the village is soon shaken when a sudden act of violence seems him cast out and left for dead. His ferocious appetite is ignited, and it's not long before his extraordinary abilities to eat make him a marvel throughout the land. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading that. I mean, I could be completely wrong. It might be completely fictitious, but I know that there was an individual who was sort of paraded around and he fought in the war as well. This is sort of quite a well-known case of a man that just couldn't stop eating and would eat anything. And I'm sure that that was in France. So I'm looking forward to reading that one. And I just love the cover as well of that one. I thought it was fab. So he's got a rat in his mouth. So that's pretty much it. I do have a couple more. One is a collection of short stories by Claire Louise Bennett, which is one of these lovely Fitzcarraldo editions, which I do so love. It's an absorbing chronicle of the pitfalls and pleasures of a solitudinous life told by an unnamed woman living on the cusp of a coastal town. Broken bowls, belligerent cows, swanky aubergines, trembling moonrises and horrifying sunsets. The physical world depicted in these stories is unsettling, yet intimately familiar, and soon takes on a life of its own. As I seem to be drawn quite a lot to write about the coast, it's something that drew me in straight away. So that's Pond by Claire Louise Bennett. To say, I don't know a huge amount about her or the book, but I do love a Fitzcarraldo edition. And as I say, I am writing quite a bit about sort of coastal towns, so that might be of interest. Last of all, The Others of Edenwell by Verity M. Holloway, another haunted house novel for the haunted spooky season. Norfolk, 1917. Unable to join the army due to heart condition, Freddie lives and works with his father in the grounds of Edenwell Hydropathic, a wellness retreat in the Norfolk Breaks. Preferring the company of birds who talk to him as one of their own over the eccentric characters who live in the spa, bathing in its healing waters, Freddie overhears their premonitions of murder. Eustace Moncrief is a troublemaker desperate to go to war and leave behind his wealthy family. Shipped to Edenwell by his mother to keep him safe from the horrors of the trenches, he strikes up a friendship with Freddie at the behest of Dr. Chalice. As the two friends grow closer and grapple with their demons, they discover a body, and something terrifying stalks the woods. The dark halls of the spa are breached, haunted by the woodland beast, and the boys soon realise that they may be the only thing standing between this monster and the whole of Edenwell. How could I not? How could I not pick that up? So that's The Others of Edenwell by Verity M. Holloway. Again, there's a lot of writers here that I've never read before, and I do quite like discovering new writers that I haven't read. But I have read quite a lot of books recently based at sort of the turn of the century in crumbling piles in the countryside. So we'll see whether this is a good comparison to those. And then very, very last of all, I've done a video before about books that are inspired by other books, and this is one that was inspired by Romeo and Juliet. It's called Fair Rosalind by Natasha Solomons. Those of you who might know Romeo and Juliet, Rosalind was Romeo's love before he set eyes on Juliet. So I thought that it was probably quite an interesting premise to read a book about her. It says, the first time Romeo Montague sees young Rosalind Capulet, he falls instantly in love. Sounds familiar. It always just made me laugh. That it's so fickle. Rosalind, headstrong and independent, is unsure of Romeo's attentions, but with her father determined that she join a convent, this handsome and charming stranger offers her the chance of a different life. Soon, though, Rosalind begins to doubt all that Romeo has told her. She breaks off the match, only for Romeo's gaze to turn towards her cousin, 13-year-old Juliet. Gradually, Rosalind realises that it is not only Juliet's reputation at stake, but her life. With only hours remaining before she will be banished behind the nunnery walls, will Rosalind save Juliet from her Romeo, or can this story only end one way? So that's the bit I want to nip to the end already to see how it turns out. But again, it was one that the cover drew me in. The fact that it's sort of based on Romeo and Juliet as well. I love a bit of a reimagining of Shakespeare, and so that's Fair Rosalind by Natasha Solomons. So that is really, really, really the end. I did say it was going to be a bit of a mega haul. I don't have any more books on order. I've got a few on my e-reader. I've picked up a few classics. As I say, I'm reading, going to read Wuthering Heights again next, which I've not read in such a long time, and see whether my thoughts change on that one. And I'm doing a buddy read of Anna Karenina the month after, so I'll tell you about those when I get on with them. But the next video is probably going to be my September summary. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're interested in book reviews, if you're interested in book hauls and recommendations, do join us, do like and subscribe. We're a friendly bunch. Do join us in the comments, and it would be lovely to know whether any of those books sound interesting to you, whether you've read any of them, whether you might pick any of them up now on the basis of those descriptions. And I'll see you again soon. Have a fantastic week. Take care. Bye.